Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I have a question for you. What do they say that every successful relationship needs? Clue. That's right. Communication. You need to learn to communicate. But what we'll come to find out later in the show is that there is a third person in every relationship that does have something to do with this, but in a very modern way. Relationships and marriage in the traditional Kenyan context is defined as a rite of passage that every individual is expected to undergo in his or her lifetime. And the integral purpose of this institution is to widen the kinship network of the individual through procreation. Lately, relationships and marriages have been in shambles, with a growing number of divorce cases seeking to end the sour marriages. In February of this year alone, 149 cases were filed, court documents show. In January, about 95 people petitioned the court to dissolve their marriages. The numbers keep rising. Last year, when the register was closed on December 31st, some 1,108 people had filed petitions to dissolve their unions. In December of 2017, that number was only 909. This morning, we want to sink our teeth a little bit deeper into this conversation. How have relationships shifted in the past? Did traditional marriages and relationships last longer? Were people happier back then than they are today in modern day relationships? I don't know, but let's get talking. All right, so we are at the beautiful Palette Cafe, and I've got two ladies with me who will dive deep into this conversation about relationships and where they stand today. I've got with me Nancy Kabiru, who is a psychologist and a clinical hypnotherapist. I have to say, before the camera started rolling, I was like, so you can hypnotize me now? What does that mean? And she was like trying to debunk all these myths I have. And then we've got a final year student with us. Her name is Ya Ajak Deng. She's studying media, but she's also a content creator. All right, ladies, are you ready to dive into relationships 101 in the 21st century? So I guess my first question to the both of you would be, what are some of the obvious shifts that you've witnessed when it comes to relationships and how we interact with our partners today compared to, say, 50 years ago? What are some of the things that strike you as, funny that we used to do that, but now if you said it openly, people would kind of side-eye you, like, really? So what are those for you?
For me, basically, there's an age shift. People are settling in much older than they were, say, 50 years ago, because they would maybe get married when they were in their teen years, but currently in their late 30s, that is when people are deciding to settle. And then the structure, the whole setting around relationships, what it means to every individual is a bit different than what it was in the past, in the sense that some people get into relationship for obvious reasons: the looks, the wallets, the background the person comes from, the education level. But in those early years, the only thing that mattered is the family you come from and the person you are. That was all.
Okay, so I'm going to come back to that. What about you?
Yeah, I would say, well, maybe 50 years down the line, I was not there. But I would say of my parents, coming from a country like South Sudan, and I come from a very polygamous family.
You come from South Sudan, right?
I'm a South Sudanese by nationality, and also come from a polygamous family. So you see, like the shift, if I look at it in terms of how people relate, just like Nancy said here, there's been a shift, like what you look at when you're moving in with your partner. So there's been a lot of changes, and looking at it, that traditional relationships, I would say they last longer than what we have nowadays. I don't know if I would say, is it that we don't have patience or we don't take time to know our partners, something like that, because I feel like traditionally, like our parents will stay for longer together than we are these days. You just move from relationship A to B to C, it's like each year or each other day there is a new relationship that you are in.
Oh wow, interesting. So you said something earlier, Nancy, that back then you kind of just looked at what family do you come from. Now, and the things that you listed, I think it was looks, wallet, education, which, as far as I know, those are like the least of your worries if you're thinking of long-term partnerships, how someone looks and how much money they have, because all those things shift. So do you think that that is part of what contributes to the frivolity, or just how many cases of divorce are taking place? Is it because that's what we're going after?
Yeah, that is a contributor in one aspect, and in those early years, divorce was not tolerated. So you could be in a relationship, both of you are committed to the wellness of the children, but there's no intimacy, there's no passion, there's no communication. So we are not holding what are the key vital necessities of love to exist, which is love, intimacy, and compassion. All of them are bounded by communication. So you lack communication, you lack intimacy, you lack compassion. You're just bound to commitment because you have children.
And is that you're talking about now?
No,
in the past.
In the past, yes,
okay.
in the past.
Yeah.
So that's why divorces were not as common as they are now. Right now, we are in we live in a village, in a global village, where information is very at everybody's reach, you know, and we are more social than they were those days. We are more exposed than they were those days. So the minute you realize that your relationship was not grounded on love, commitment, intimacy, and passion, maybe other factors had to come into play, then it does not have very solid grounds. So when that fades, say the money factor reduces, then you find someone saying, this is not my standard, it's not what I signed up for, and I'm leaving. But then in those old days, you would be condemned for even thinking about leaving.
Right. So which one is better? And I mean, who's happier? Who, like, if you know, and I mean that both from a singular perspective, and from a community, a village perspective. Was it better back then when you would just stay whether or not you loved the person, they were kind to you? Which one do you think? And maybe I'll address this to you. And I'm curious to even hear what it's like with your friends and your girlfriends as you're talking about relationships and your guy friends.
Okay, just to go back on the traditional relationship, when traditionally when people were coming together, the man and the woman, there were certain values that were set. For you to be married to a certain family, they used to do something called background researching, like to know the family, what kind of a family, if they're witchcraft, if they're good people, if they are bad people, such things were done before you go into that family. And you find such things actually made the relationship, by the time you're going to that family, you know where you're going to. Unlike these days, you just meet, we are strangers. But before you will not take your time to dig down to know where I'm coming from, It's just like we've met maybe at the school and we catch up and, you're like, we know each other very well. So by the time you're getting there, you actually realize you don't know this person that you're getting into the relationship with. And so you find that it becomes really hard. And also relationships in the traditional way, it was a communal thing. Like the wife was for the community, not only you and your man, There was that involvement with the family members, with the external families. So when you're staying there, you're not just belonging to your man alone. The other family members will be there to see you as the woman of the community. And so it's totally different. Like these days, you just move in with your husband and your kids and you're staying in your own family or with your boyfriend, and so there's no that relationship with other people to get to know you as the person who is living with them. And looking at our relationship these days with my girlfriend, and like we are in a modern, and there's a way that we say we are living in the modern relationship, and so this is how we want to do our things. We set our own rules, we live by what we believe, not what the society actually believes in.
And which one is better though? I mean I get both sides of the arguments, and even just hearing what you were saying about, like, a couple in that union represented what the community was about, the spaces that you were in, and so they were more involved in also seeing you through your hard times. But I've also heard many women be if my in-laws come one more time between me, like, I am just done. So where is the sweet spot?
Both of them have advantages and disadvantages. If we look at the traditional context, the advantage was that the children grew up in a balanced home. So they would know the mom, they would know the dad, and even if it was a polygamous family, they'd still have mutual respect for each and every other mother who is part of that family. The disadvantage was then violence and abuse was tolerated, you know.
Yeah.
So you'd be physically beaten, there were rape cases that were tolerated, and you couldn't get out of that. So the victim had to live with it. The society condoned it, and most of the time the woman was put down because they were told you needed to be humble. You're the one who provoked this situation. And in instances where a woman misadvised or advised the children not to take what she's going through, then she was looked at as a bad omen. And even the husband and the other wives would separate her from participating in the family events. So those are the advantages and disadvantages of traditional marriages as I look at them. Modern require that everybody to become self-aware, okay? Because the lack of self-awareness, the naivety, leads to broken relationships within a very short time, because you find people are grounded on material things. You want a certain class because your friend has a certain class. You want someone with a certain level of education because you're comparing yourself. You want to get to a certain level, but you have not taken the time to work on yourself, to build on yourself, because a balanced relationship involves where every partner A and partner B can bring both to the table.
So wholesome, that they both come to the table wholesome.
Yes, wholesome, because the inability to do that leaves one feeling as a victim or one feeling as though they are being used in that relationship. So the lack of that is what makes people fall out of relationship. And we also have to understand, currently we are having same-sex relationships. What drives that same-sex relationships? You find people living together, female to female, male to male, and they are happy. Sometimes, what leads to that happening? What is the background of the person? You know, what are the experiences the person has gone through? You find people find it easy to invest in themselves, like makeup, their hair, their nail. The guys buy good shoes, good watches, but they will not take time to go for psychotherapy, where they can be helped or equipped with skills to understand the other person and to know what to bring on the table. That is very vital.
And actually I think, and I'm gonna butcher this quote, but it's something like, marriage is the only contract that you sign that binds you for life, that doesn't require you doing any kind of you know, real research or taking time and analyzing and just understanding how best is this. You kind of just go by, I feel like I love him and this feels a certain way, but that's not what's going to make it last. I'm curious to hear a little bit more about what it was like for you growing up in a polygamous family, and if that at all influences your perception of relationships today and how you would consider going into a relationship.
Actually, I would say there's the good side and the bad side of being in a polygamous family. And from an individual point of view, you know, there's the good side, of course, having many siblings and having a big family. Of course, it's always advantage to yourself. But if you look at it in terms of personal growth and how you relate to your parents, and also the relationship that you'll want with each other is so different, you know, because if you're in a polygamous family, that means you only have one father and maybe 10 other wives. And so you find the concentration is only with the mothers. You concentrate on your kids, but the dad is just there as somebody to, I would say, just there to supervise. But because now there is no relationship that you get to have with your father at an individual level. Unlike these days, you know, for me, growing up in a polygamous family, I will never really want to go to one. I'm just going for a monogamous family because I've seen the good side of it, which is being many and having a big family. But that's not it all. And you know, traditionally they were we didn't have a lot of stuff like education, health-wise, you know, like economically, like is it possible to maintain a polygamous family? In this setup, it's not easy to maintain a polygamous family. Leave alone like maintaining your own family is hard. So if you get to have 2 or 3 other wives, it becomes more hard, and you wouldn't want to subject your kids to this kind of life that you've gone through. You've already experienced it. So for me, I would say like being in a polygamous family, it makes me like have that negative thought. Like anytime I get to a relationship and somebody mentions something like I would want to have the second, I'm like, you know what?
Gary's like,
Forget it.
So just go. I don't want this. You know, this is not the kind of life I want to get after going through as a child and growing up.
Interesting. You know, there's a really world-renowned psychotherapist named Esther Perel, and she talks about how back in the day, a monogamous relationship meant that you had one partner for life. Today, you have one partner at a time. So you call yourself monogamous, but you had like 50 relationships over a span of like 30 years or something.
Like one at a time.
One at a time, as opposed to how it was back then, which is like you found your partner, here you go, good luck. And now let's talk about the third partner in every relationship. I'm not gonna lie, I just learned about this term from Nancy, so I'm gonna let you explain who is the third partner in every relationship.
We all love our mobile phones and communicating with the other person who is not present with ourselves. Sometimes I even think relationships would be more successful even if we are together, we are chatting on the phone, because that is how everybody is going currently.
So the third partner is technology, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome it or not. Or, you know, after this, maybe you'll just rethink how you use it. You know, I've said this on the show a couple times, but I'm just going to repeat it with you guys, that I, at some point, have interviewed two women, separate times. Both have been married 40 plus years. But I just asked them, so why do you think your relationship has lasted so long, and why do you think there's so many breakups today? And both of them, separate times, said, I'm not sure, but I think it has to do with the mobile phone.
Oh, wow.
I think that has a lot to do with how relationships disintegrate, trust is diminished, and it just makes things more messy. So they were like, technology has been good for many reasons. I'm just not sure how great it is when it comes to relationships. So I want to hear from you. How has technology affected how we interact with our partners, how we create intimacy between our partners, and whether it's in a good way or a bad way? Yar, since you are like right bang in the middle of this new age of
I would say, we look at technology in both sides, the good and the advantage side and the disadvantage side. And I would say on the advantage side, technology has brought us all together in one way or another in different ways. Like, you meet people each day. Nancy said we are social beings, and so through the process of interaction on the various social media platforms and how we interact with people. And so on the other side, looking at technology, how it has come in and destroyed relationships, these days we are not able to come forward and face our partners and tell them what we're going through. I mean, I will feel it when you tell me face to face what you actually, if you're not happy with me or if you're happy with me, rather than texting. It's just like we are relying on text and everything, and so you lose that connection with your partner. It's like the connection is on the phone rather than the physical one, and so you find the technology is separating us. It's like it's putting us aside, it's like you are distancing yourself from me because of, and also with technology we can have long distances nowadays, and it's good, we are able to be in touch, but it takes longer before you get to know your partner. You assume you know them because you're always on phone, but then again there is that intimacy of your partner.
Would you add to that?
Mobile phones break the emotional connection, and sometimes the physical connection you have with someone. Because if you're present with them, say, assuming on a date, and they are on their phone, you feel unimportant because they are giving someone else, whether work or parents or any other person around their lives, they are giving them that attention as opposed to fully giving it to you. So taking away from you or from every individual slowly brings the distance. And not only cohabiting relationships like man and woman, you find even when you're home your child is there talking to you, but you have your mobile phone, you're more interested on responding to the texts that are coming in than spending that time with your children. So my relationship advice to every individual is, when you have your loved one close to you, keep your phones away and give them that attention. Research shows for children they just require maximum 45 minutes from attention from a parent, and they will be off your back. You understand? Grown adults require maximum 30 minutes of attention, then they'll feel fulfilled. And even after that, if you feel like being on your phone, then there will be no issues. Then these mobile phones have brought conflicts, in the sense that you can be on a date with your wife or your husband or your boyfriend, but they are chatting somebody else. When you have emotional connection with someone else, there are some hormones that are produced in the body, making you happy, excited, and the person you're with will feel, because they can perceive that, you know, we are able to feel the energy the other person is bringing or taking. So you can be able to feel, this is not, he's here, yes, or she's here, yes, but she's not here for me, because the attention is on elsewhere, somebody else.
So we've talked a lot about how it can create distance, despite the fact that technology is here to try and bring us closer together. But how does one then navigate the dating space? You know, we've all agreed roles are changing, so you're finding more and more women and men in the workspace. The economy and the landscape is just getting tougher and more competitive, so you're spending more and more hours at work. How do you then start to forge connections? Can't we use technology in a way that we can start to connect with people and meet different people without having to be like, it's 9 p.m. I can't imagine going to like dress up and put on a good suit and go seeing this girl. But I can go on Tinder or whatever other platform we're going to talk about and see if I can meet someone. You know, what are your thoughts on that?
For new relationships, say you've never met, if I use Tinder as a platform, it's a good platform because it enables people to meet from different vast backgrounds, but you already will have formed an emotional connection without physically having seen this person. And when there's an emotional connection, there's an expectation. There's a need that will be fulfilled upon your meeting. And even if you try to stay grounded so much, you don't have this person's background. You don't know. You like them for the superficial thought or feeling, but you don't know them in a close.
But can't we establish those conversations, or you know, just because obviously I can't imagine that you'd just be like, hi, you look good. You look good too. Great. How's your day? Good. Good too. You know, like that you can start to be like, to ask questions that matter, like what scares you, what terrifies you. You know, when was the last time you laughed so hard your belly hurt? You know, so can't you
imagine
ask the right questions?
Imagine going on an interview, because that platform is like going for an interview. In your head, you will always say what you expect the interviewee expects you to say. So rarely will you find somebody who is actually genuine.
But that can be said, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here now, but that can be said for first dates. My first date, you won't get to see the like fully relaxed version of Sharon. You know, this is like I'm coming to with my best foot forward
but
to
the
some
first,
degree. You know,
first date, I will be able to pick how you laugh, how you chew, how you hold your fork, how you express yourself. Those things matter.
How you speak to the waiters.
Exactly,
you know.
exactly. How much time you take when you go to the washroom.
Exactly. You know.
If you're decisive on what you're ordering.
What does that mean if you're not decisive?
It says something. What do you
Aren't
think?
women the ones who never know what to pick? When it's like, have you seen those memes for like the worst question, the question that leads to fights? What do you want to have for dinner? And it's just like, I don't know. That's it.
I have friends, when they are invited on dates, they go and research what is the menu, can I be able to afford it?
Wow.
You understand? And what would I want from this restaurant? What are they known to be good for?
Yeah.
So when you're going, you're already decided and you know.
The fact is, there's people who've met online,
Yeah.
gotten married, and live happily. But I think there's more people who've been catfished.
Yeah.
It's just been like, this isn't working, and never find the right people.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I think we've established that, yes, you can start a conversation with someone, through these dating apps and
Yes,
platforms.
yes.
But perhaps at some point, step out of that and look to connect more intimately, right? That's
Yeah,
what
yeah.
I'm taking from you. Social media, I'm going to put that as its own category,
Oh, wow.
separate from like dating apps and everything.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who put their business on social media, their relationships on social media. How do you think that affects relationships today?
Well, I would say it affects actually relationships in a very negative way, because on social media we only put what we want you to see. So all that we are showing is the beautiful side of our relationship, how we're going on vacation, how we are happy, but we don't show the other side, that there is the downside of the relationship. And so you find the viewers or the people who are following on social media like, oh, this is such a beautiful relationship, forgetting that. And so you come out of that social media, you come and pressurize your boyfriend or your girlfriend, and you tell them this is how you want your relationship to be, And so you find like we are living on other people's meaning. And we have these people, influencers on social media, and you find like maybe this is one of your favorite influencer, and so you get to be like, okay, I want to be like this person. So we are living on what other people are showing us,
False
not
expectations,
false expectations, and not forgetting that we can always create our own expectations and our relationships, knowing that we have the good side and the bad side at the end of it all together.
Yeah.
I think she said it well, but I think social media is superficial. If right now we decide to take a picture, we will all smile.
Oh yeah.
But you will not understand
no
what
idea.
is going behind
You
the
have no
smile.
idea, yeah.
So social media is the same. But there are people who fall victim of being true and themselves on social media. But remember, the world at the current times are looking for the superficial. So the minute you put your heart and your pain and your experience, then the society doesn't have that time to pat your back and encourage you and direct you to the right avenues. What they do is pull the dirt from your statements, and you find there are so many people who've posted their heart on social media but end up getting depressed, end up taking their lives, end up making irrational decisions because they feel unwanted, they feel unappreciated. Because if you don't know me and you can talk trash about me, then it means I'm the worst person. So you end up to the negative effects of social media. So my thoughts is everybody should be very cautious on the content they put out there, and ensure you know the purpose of which platform you're on. We have community social media pages. Please be aware, follow and see what have been the trends and history of people who are saying what you're saying, and ensure that you don't post something that can eventually jeopardize yourself.
All right, so the last question for you ladies, which is, I think, it's a difficult question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, because I'm not sure how you'd measure it. But if you were to kind of figure out the average happiness scale of traditional relationships and how happy they were, or satisfied even, and how happy people are today in their relationships, who do you think is happier on this scale? Who do you think is more at peace, is more content? And I know that's a difficult, it's like, how do you measure happiness, and how do you but just maybe even from just your own personal views, I'd be keen to hear from both of you, Nancy and Yar. Who do you think is happier?
Yeah.
It's actually hard to say, but I would say it's a 50-50
Right.
case, you know. The happiness cannot be determined by what makes you happy might not make me happy. And so it's a 50-50 case. Just how you balance it all.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd say traditionally, communal happiness was higher. Modern times, individual happiness is higher. Yeah. Because there's more self-awareness, what you want, you're making individual decision. Traditionally, you had to conform or be advised and assume that that is what is expected, and so you had to fit in and somehow be happy with it.
But as a community, as a village,
yes, they were.
that there was a level of satisfaction
Exactly.
and contentment that lacks to a great
Currently,
extent
yes.
currently.
Yes.
That's interesting. All right,
Yeah.
thank you, ladies. Thank you so much. I think this was really insightful to try and just understand a little bit more about the shifts in relationships, traditional versus modern. Which one is right? Which one is wrong? Is there a right? Is there a wrong? Or is it just
Balancing.
Balancing.
Exactly.
And we wish you all the best if you are in a relationship. Just remember, your vows are not a nursery rhyme.